I'm Stacy from Truly Majestic. Welcome to this basket stitch blanket tutorial. The very first thing you'll need to do is cast on 17 stitches. And let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is tie a simple knot. It does not need to be a slip knot, just a simple knot. And you want the tail facing forward. Now I'm going to be grabbing my yarn from around the back and pulling it through the front of the loop, and I'm just going to be chaining 17 stitches. It's best actually if you chain one extra, 18, in case you've miscounted or you need to make some adjustments. Now you'll notice on your chain, the front of it looks like a braid or a plait, and the back of it should have big dashes down the center of the chain. This is the back of your cast on, and the braid or plait is the front of the cast on. What we're going to do next is pull one more stitch up through the end, and this is the first stitch of the next row, which is still a cast on row. Now we're going to pull our yarn through each dash or bump that's on the back side of our cast on. So there's bumps on one side and a braid on the other side. You want the bumps facing you for this, and just pull the yarn up through each one. You want the yarn loops to be big enough for you to get your hand through and sit comfortably on your arm. Not too big, not too small, and try to make them as even as you can. This whole process can be done easier if it's on the floor or on a table. Now let's just have a quick count down through all the loops to see if I have 17. And if I have 18, that's just fine. We'll just take one stitch off and just use the 17 loops. So I have 18. So we need to take this last stitch away, and we will make that little bump go away when we're finished with our blanket. Let's just get to the other side to show you. This is the back side and this is the front side. It has a nice braid, and we'll be having the braid facing us. Put your hand through the loops now, from the back of the loop to the front of the loop, and this will make sure the loops are facing the right direction. In every row in this entire blanket, we are going to slip the first stitch and then carry on. So we're going to knit 3 here, which means pull the yarn from the back of the loop to the front. We're doing that for 3 stitches, from the back of the loop to the front and then putting it on your arm. And then we're going to purl. That means our yarn needs to come from the front of the loop and go to the back. We're going to purl 3 stitches next. So that's 1. We're going to purl another 2, which means pull it from the front of the loop to the back, and it makes these nice little bumps like dashes when you purl. So you know when you've purled and you know when you've knitted. And 1 more purl. After that's finished, we're going to knit 3 more and then purl 3 more and then knit 3 more. So you just repeat the knit 3, purl 3, knit 3, purl 3 until you have 1 stitch left. For the last stitch, we're going to do what's called a ktbl. That means knit through the back loop. You just hold the yarn and simply pull it straight through the loop. You don't have to go to the front or the back, just pull it straight through. Next, we're going to slip the first stitch like we do on all rows. Again, knit 3 and then purl 3, knit 3, purl 3, knit 3. A basket stitch is made up of knitting 3 and purling 3. So we do this for 3 rows. We've already done 1 row, we're on the 2nd row now, and we're going to do 1 more row going back the other way of following the exact same pattern. And again, when we get to the very last loop, we're going to ktbl, which is knit through the back loop. And to do that, we just hold the yarn in our hand and pull it straight through the end. And this makes the side of your blankets look really nice. It has a smooth braided effect. You should have a grasp of what you're doing by now, so you get to knit the next row by yourself. Slip the first stitch, knit the next 3, purl the next 3, continue that pattern until you get to the last loop and then knit through the back loop. Now that you've completed that row on your own, we're going to do the opposite. Slip the first stitch and then we're going to be purling the first 3 stitches and then knitting and then purling and then knitting. Now you want to do this pattern for 3 rows as well. So we're going to start this row by purling 3 instead of knitting 3. So we purl the first 3 stitches, knit the next 3, and then purl the next 3, knit the next 3, purl the next 3. After you finish this, you have to carry on the next rows, actually the entire blanket by yourself. Continue going back to the beginning of the video, repeating what you need to see, and I'll put a pattern here so you can leave it on the pattern to refresh your memory. After you finish this row, the last stitch you do a knit through the back loop, which means to pull the yarn straight through. And then after that, the next 2 rows, you're going to do exactly what I've shown you. Purling 3, knitting 3, purling 3. Make sure you always slip the first stitch on every row that you make, and also knit through the back loop on every row you make. And this makes a nice, clean, smooth selvage up the sides of your blankets. Here's the pattern that you'll be following. You can do the rest on your own until you have enough yarn to make 1 more row, and I'll show you how to cast off and weave in the ends. Once you've completed the basket stitch and have enough yarn for 1 more row, it should look like this. You should have nice blocks of knits and purls, a smooth edge like this that looks like a braid or a plait, and then you're ready to do the cast off row. To cast off, we're going to slip the first stitch like we always do, and we're going to purl the purls and knit the knits. So wherever you see a purl from the last row, you're going to purl. So this is a purl, so I'm going to purl this one. I have 2 loops on my hand now. I'm going to slip the back one over the top of the front one and off. Now that's another purl stitch. We're going to purl this one as well. I'll have 2 loops on my hand. Hold one in your hand, drop the back loop over the front loop and off. Now we're going to continue doing the same thing across the whole blanket. Now these ones were knit stitches before, so I'm going to knit these instead of purling them. And I'm going to continue on dropping the back loop over the front loop. When you're casting off, you want to make sure your loops are actually bigger than what they would normally be, so you have a nice loose cast off. If you have them too tight, your blanket will end up looking like a pyramid, and that's really what we don't want. So just remember, knit the knits, purl the purls all the way to the end, drop the second loop over the front one and drop it off. Continue on till the end of the blanket. Now pull the remainder of your yarn, which shouldn't be very much. If it is too much, you need to cut some off. Pull it through the last loop all the way and snug the last loop up a little bit tight, but not too tight. Now we're going to weave in the tail of the yarn. Your blanket should look like this. This is the other end of our blanket where we cast it on, and we had that extra bump, if you remember. So we're going to sort that out right now. You just simply unstitch it, untie this knot, which will get rid of the bump, and then pass your yarn through the loop you've just made and snug it up like we did the other side. And now you can weave in this tail into the side of your blanket. There isn't a special way to do this. You just need to tuck it in here and there. I like to do it along the edges of the blanket to blend it in, and then just hide the tail. You want to do the exact same thing on the other side, and you should have an absolutely gorgeous blanket. I'm Stacy. Happy arm knitting from Truly Majestic.